Hey guys, you got Crave here, and let's talk about the 4070 Ti and how it pairs with a 5600X. So TLDR is that it works, and well, I knew this even before I bought the card, mainly because I was basically already looking at 3090s some months after I got my 3060 Ti. I really was just looking for a bit more in terms of the performance and visual space. I mean, the 3060 is a really great card and is one of the best when it comes to performance and price ratios, but I really just wanted more. So I got the Gigabyte 4070 Ti Gaming OC, and let's look at some numbers. But before that, let me show you my setup. So some things to mention about the disclaimers, and basically there are 2 passes generally done to get the scores, but for a game like Hogwarts Legacy, I did close to 10, and I'll explain that later when we get there. Second thing is all settings are maxed out, and the variances will be in the application of upscaling, frame generation where applicable, and the different levels of ray tracing being applied. Oh, and I always turn off annoying settings like blur, depth of field, film grain, and the like. The numbers are based on in-game benchmarks to keep things consistent or as consistent as possible. If the game doesn't have it, I try to load a specific scene and perform generally the same actions across to keep the variances to a minimum. And of course, I don't like it when I test that I have to shut down background apps, so I had some standard things running like Discord and about 4 launchers in the tray and about a browser with about 9 tabs open. So let's get to it. Let's start with Atomic Heart, and it's one of those quirky shooters that will remind you a bit of Fallout and BioShock. It has its issues in the audio part, specifically around the voice acting and script choices, and maybe around mouse controls, but for the most part, it's a fun game. It's definitely a pretty game with an unusual design choice. On that, this game should run quite well in most setups. As you can see in the numbers, the game runs well even without upscaling. It's a very smooth visual experience which has some excellent variations in terms of indoor and outdoor areas. The gameplay may not be for everyone, and the edgy voice acting can be a turn off at times, but yeah, this game is fun. Again, visually, it's a smooth experience and the numbers reflect the same. In terms of processor constraints, I didn't observe any, as the 5600X is really just a capable processor. In fact, except for maybe Division 2, the 5600X does quite well on all games I tested. From a new game, let's get into something from about 4 or 5 years ago and look at just the raw numbers. This game looks good to this day, and it's recently been out on Steam but received some mixed reviews. The main things are around what happened years back and how they didn't do a proper Steam release, and the way it's been crashing similar to Modern Warfare 2. There are fixes you can perform to address the crash to desktop problem. Graphics-wise, it's still tough to run, as you can see in the numbers. It could be needing better optimization or tweaking the engine, but good luck to that with the way there seems to be at least based on feedback, there seems to be a lack of support on the developer end. Now, while it looks good, it's not something that's visually stunning. Still, upgrading my GPU did give me better performance, and the feeling of the gameplay reflects the same. So, I don't really run into the crashes anymore with it, so it's been great. And there are no bottlenecks except in the FHD or 1920 by 1080 space, where I've seen spikes to 100% with my processor, but it doesn't happen that often. Baldur's Gate feels like it's been in early access for forever, but it's finally coming out this year. There's a lot of depth to this game and a lot of choices to be made, which is something you expect from typical RPGs. It's definitely a good-looking game with improved visuals compared to their Divinity release. There is a strong emphasis on your party's character with camera angles focusing on the speaker when in conversations. As you can see in the numbers, this game isn't easy to run. It is possible that the DX11 option could help, but for this run I only went with Vulkan. One more thing to note is that upscaling really doesn't help as much as you would like, and I'm hoping the overall performance numbers can be addressed before release. For VRAM and CPU usage, nothing really sticks out, so at the moment, the relatively low overall FPS numbers are what I can call out for this game. Okay, now let's look at a staple when it comes to benchmarks. Cyberpunk started pretty bad, especially in the console space. It's frustrating because I was less wary of CDPR before this game. They really misled people with Cyberpunk in the initial months. Now, in any case, it's a whole lot better now and can be a fine example of basically what a great visual experience can be like and a good introduction to NVIDIA's visual techniques. In these numbers, you see the raw performance scores, but you're also seeing the benefit of DLSS and the 4000 series frame generation. With RT turned on and set to medium, the game really just looks really great and achieves good FPS numbers and runs really smooth. I still have to get a better feel of frame generation's effects on gameplay, but visually, these methods help a lot. I really like what Nvidia or even AMD's upscaling techniques have done, and then of course Nvidia's frame generation, what they do for games, and you'll see it eventually also in the next two games. They really enhance experiences further. The only thing I wish developers would do is to optimize the games at the raw performance level as opposed to developers just relying on upscaling to basically shore up their misses. Plague Tale was one of the very best of 2022. It had an extremely strong story, it was mechanically decent, and it was quite the looker. The way it made full use of lighting and atmosphere really just enhanced the experience. It was, well, tough to run back then, and it still is to this day. Again, upscaling helps boost numbers, but frame generation is really where it's at. As all the settings in the 6 games I'm showing you are maxed out, frame gen, where it applies, really allows for the best eye candy with a smooth feel. Even with ray tracing shadows turned on, the world of Requiem really is just an amazing experience. The 4070 Ti enhances the happy parts of the storyline and really makes the sad and depressing moments all the more crushing. In terms of the penalty, DLSS and FrameGen's latency really isn't a concern for a game of this sort, and I really haven't had any concerns around this area. Finally, we have Hogwarts Legacy, and it's a good looking game. If you wanted to see what it's like to be a student at Hogwarts messing around in an open world format, then this is a fine example of what it's like. In terms of running it though, it was really bad on PC during the early access period. Frame drops were always here and there. I mean, Portkey Games, the developer, have done some quick fixes and Legacy runs better now. It could still do a lot in terms of improving performance, especially in the GPU and VRAM usage. Even in 1080 resolution, I saw frequent touches to 100% in terms of GPU usage, and video RAM would sometimes be close to maxing out. Oh, and it's strange, but system RAM shoots up to about 26 gigabytes at times. Now, given that I do have a number of background apps running that can basically help to explain that, but this is the only game that really breached 16 gigabytes given the environment of my test setup. The last game that came really close to breaching 16, or maybe went over it by only a small amount, is Modern Warfare 2. In addition, the Hogsmeade area in the map remains to be a problem as it can really tank your frames. Oh, and Hogwarts, the school itself, also does the same. The 4070 Ti handles it better with settings maxed out, but optimization can only improve the experience. Everywhere else on the map, Legacy runs like a dream, especially with the DLSS and FrameGen combo. It's such a better experience when you can levitate enemies and clearly see the animation when you slam them to the ground. So there you have it, numbers showing the performance of the 4070 Ti matched with a 5600X, compared to the previous gen card that I had that still does really well. Overall, I'm very happy with the purchase and it's just right for the QHD and 1440 ultra-wide space. I really like Nvidia's upscaling technique and the FrameGen offering. Where it's applicable, it really helps to enhance gaming experiences. Again, I really wish we don't have to rely on upscaling techniques outright and that developers should work on optimizing raw performance. I'd like it to happen faster that we can see ray tracing as a base offering. Lastly, I really would appreciate if basically Nvidia and AMD would bring down their prices to earth or to levels where more gamers can acquire better tech. Anyway, thanks for checking this out. Talk to you soon.